Shalom, my shalom, our shalom is long. Peace and love to all Muslims and non-Muslims. So it's time to set the record straight on a historical event that has massively misinformed us of the truth. And this is the biggest event in history that we have been given a mislabel in order to misidentify the whole situation. And from this historical event, all treachery and deception takes forth. And this is called the Marab slave trade. It's what they didn't want you to know. But we're exposing this today to make it be known. Now, watch this. Watch this. We're going to go straight to it. Let's find. There we go. Straight to it. We're going to go straight to Sufa 70 more raw. All right. So what we want to jump right into is to understand who are the Marabs. The Marabs are the people you've never known of. Marabs are the people, the only way you may have heard of them is through another mislabel, through an endoname of European classification called Arab. But now we're going to show the connection between Arab and why they didn't want you to know the connection with, add an M to it, Marab. Classified as the Moors. Okay, you see it there for your proof. Now we're going to go straight into what this is called. They renamed this the Arabs slave trade. So now all pale skinned nations that was ordered by the black nobility of Christianity, this occurred on the west. So on the western end, southern Europe, down into Middle Eastern area, to the tip of the Horn of North Africa. Now, apparently, they did not want us to know the true name. So Allah himself revealed this understanding right here. This understanding of the Arab slave trade is the historical practice of enslaving Asiatics, known and giving them new titles as Black, Negro, African. This created a denationalization, a diaspora of their name, identity, and their creator. Now, this was called the Marab slave trade. So the people who enslaved the Marabs, as they say, all skin folks ain't kin folks. Okay, so you had two darker skinned nations. As you reference into your biblical scripture, it says there's a difference between the Hebrew and the Egyptian. So when we are talking about that identity is covering the Marab slave trade. The Marab slave trade did not enslave Africans, it enslaved Marab. by Africans and others by Christian Roman traders known as Arab. As we recover, the Romans and the Christians called the Moravs Arab, which now created the Arab slave trade, which was the Morav slave trade, enslaving of the Moors, the Moravs, by the Moors, which would be Africans. This is why Moors and Morav is not the same word. Those who was from the region of Morav knew and understood what Morav was. Those who hated and grew hatred and was offsprings of the hatred and those teachings, they began to separate themselves, call themselves Arabs and call themselves Africans and call themselves Moors. And what this would do would take us into this historical practice called Morav slave trade, the enslaving of Moravs and other Moravians. This slave trade has spanned over 1,300 years. This is on the west side of Asia. It was most active in West Asia, North Africa, and Southeast Africa, with estimates suggesting that between 6 million to 10 million Moravs were enslaved during this period. So this is where you get all your misleading documentation of Africans coming to America and Americans going to Africa. Well, this was in a period of the 7th century. So the Arab slave trade is known to be present during the 7th century. The trade involved various routes, including the Trans-Saharan, the Indian Ocean slave trades, and had a profound impact on the demographics and societies of the regions involved. The legacy of this trade continues to influence cultural and social dynamics in the affected areas today. So watch this right here now. Watch how Morav is not mentioned. Check this out. Arab slave trade. Despite the name Arab slave trade was a complex, multi-ethnic network of slave trading routes across the Islamic world. Nope, that's not true. Across the Christian world. This is where dirty Moor was becoming a thing. Before it was a dirty Moor, the dirty Moor was becoming to be under Christianity. The Islam has always been part of Morav. Morav has nothing to do with Arab now. Arab now is the dirty Christians' way of copying and renaming and creating a false history for their offspring to believe they have some natural right to be in the land that they be in. Now check this. These multi-ethnic network of slave trading routes, look who it happens to be involving: Arab, Berber, Persian, Ottoman, African, South Asian. Now, what do those nationalities sound like? a whole bunch of dark-skinned people under new names and guises that has no contribution to the original moral. Moral was the bringers of knowledge and wealth to all of these nationalities, and the nationalities that did not like that began to plot and plan. Instead of Islam being spread to the world, they plot and plan to reverse Islam and make it what it's not. So the whole Islam you think about or is connected to will bring you to this Arab slave trade. And this Arab slave trade is not Arab. Has nothing to do with Arabs. That is a modern day name. This is when dark-skinned people grouped up. First, it was by themselves against the moral, and then later, after they got overtook by Sargon of moral, they began to make pale counterparts in order to reestablish a military to overtake Islam. That was spread by moral that had nothing to do with love, justice, and honor. So how did it become a crusade? This is where the crusade comes in. They're hijacking Islam, which is a love, truth, peace, purity, and justice based on the 5 divine actions that will bring the world into one harmony. And these others did not want that, called Africans in quick words, Christians in quick words, Moors in quick words. So the dirty Moors are Arab Christians that have no longer associated with the true origin of the ancient people, moral, who are the bringers of knowledge and wealth to your Middle Eastern, to your Southern of West Europe, known as Asia today. And this is why Abraham got out and came to the East, what we know as America today, where none of this was even popping. So from the 7th century until, let's see, timeline, 15th century, but let's see what they say. They say 7th century to the late 19th century. The Arab slave trade spanned from the 7th century to the 19th century, with some forms of slavery persisting into the modern era. Now I'm going to show you that the moral, Islam, has nothing to do with slavery. See, this is the works of Paul. Now, I'm going to read you something out the Sufa. That the morals have, which is original true Islam. We don't deal with ayats as the name of what we believe. In our Sufa, this is what our divinity, in our Sufa, whether by bondage, obligation, fear, or debt, slavery in all forms is the gravest of transgressions. Verily, any man or woman who partakes in slavery is forbidden to be known as a Musallam. So now when we go back to the 17th and 19th century, we know this is not Musallams. We know this is not Asalam. So what is this? Earlier had his name as Mithraism, Manese. These early 7th century, coming to your late 19th century, where Christianity would run the world, which was Mithra, Manese, and all this was about enslaving the Moravs, a large population. The trade was most active in West Asia, North Africa, and Southeast Africa. And what these Africans was doing from that location was enslaving Moravians, the Moravs. This is why no one has came to help you that is another nation. All other nations have been trained to go against Absalom. And so this is why they created a fake Absalom called the Quran, to have you believe in something fake that is actually a Christian text. The Quran of Mecca is a Christian text. The Quran of Mecca is written by Paul. Paul is not only the author of the 22 epistles of the New Testament, but Paul is also the author of the Quran. Paul was an African. Paul was a Christian. Paul is what made Christ a salvation system for the forefathers of European nations. European nations didn't exist in the time of Morav. The European nation comes to exist after a crusade of Morav slave trade. And this Morav slave trade is what led to the worship of Christ and Christianity today. With Christ redepicting Allah of the Morav al-Dukhan. See, they'll tell you, because AI is part of the game. This is how you know AI is part of the game. We know it's Arabic Christians. So you telling me there's no Arabic Christians, AI? Watch this. There are Arabic Christians. Guess what? Arabic is the language of the Quran, not the language of the Morav. There you go. There is a significant population of Arabs who practice Christianity, who are commonly known as Arab Christians. These are called Roman Christians. They label things in Rome. They label things in Latin. They label things of Greek. They label things of Christ. And these are the people laying in the same bed with one another. To stop the Islam of Morav, they made the Christian Crusade. The Christian Crusades were a series of religious wars. See, religious wars initiated by the Western European Christians during the Middle Ages, primarily aimed at the Holy Land from Muslim control. So this is the history we have. We have a history from the Bible, which includes slavery. We have a history of the Quran, which includes slavery. And both of these are upheld as the largest institutions with over 1 billion members, affirming that this violation of divine law was necessary for their forefathers and their offspring. The most notable crusades occurred between 1095 and 1291. These campaigns was motivated by a desire to stop the expansion of Islam, to reclaim territories that had been Christian, and to secure access to holy sites. The Crusades had a profound impact on medieval society, which is Moorish. So what infiltrated the Moorish system is the Christian way of life, which is death, deception, and destruction, led by Paul, the apostle of Christ. Now, as you see, it is better a man lose his life in the eyes of Allah. So Allah, Islam, and Marab did not permit slavery. And this was written before they was written in their 7th century. So let's flash to why all this exists. The reason why all this exists is because of this. Church, Christianity, and Christ. This is what we need to do. Therefore, we are returning the church, Christianity, and Christ back to the European nations, as the church, Christianity, and Christ was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation. So church, Christianity, Christ has nothing to do with us. Church, Christianity, and Christ was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation. We no longer agree or affirm that Christ, the church, nor Christianity is the Asiatic savior. While we, Asiatics, the Morab al-Dukan, are returning to al-Sufyan Islam, which was founded by our first father, Abraham, for our earthly and divine salvation. And in our earthly and divine salvation of al-Sufyan Islam, the covenant of the great God, Allah, is what we follow. Our God is Allah. Not the God of the church, not the God of Christianity, not the God of Christ. We claim Jesus as the original name of our great prophet, Jesus. In any other proclamation, it does not bring about Asiatic liberation. There's no Asiatic liberation from anything that is from any nation of European. You are of Moorish descent. You are of Islam, not the Quran Islam, not the Quran of Mecca, not the Islam of Mecca. All that is Christianity. Black rocks, all this is Christianity. Squares, cubes, all this is Christianity. This has nothing to do with your God, Allah, which is pre-existing before the Arab slave trade. And so the Arab slave trade was not for Arabs. It was for Marabs. It was originally called the Marab slave trade, where there was religious wars initiated by Western European Christians. And this is why Abraham got out of hell. To start as our first forefather. To start as our first father of Marab Islam al-Sufyan. The fake Christians and the fake Muslims today have no connection with Marab. These are Romans imposters playing as saviors of their own religion. Your first father Abraham didn't set up no church, set up Christianity, and set up Christ. Islam don't require baptism, don't require shahada, any of these practices that you have learned as rituals. These are from colonializers, colonizers, and imperialists who deemed that your Islam was not for their forefathers. So to stop the spread of Islam, they created the Marab slave trade, which you know as the Arab slave trade. There was never no Arabs in the word of Arabs. These are dirty Christians who transported themselves through literature by defining labels that did not associate with them, but creating a body of knowledge that associates with salvation in the reversal of what Abraham done for his children and descendants. So as you see, you can continue doing what you're doing, but me, I return the church, Christianity, and its Christ back to the European nations as it was prepared for their forefathers and for them sellout ass niggas. But those who remain first, true, and original and would die for this honor, which is me, the Marab al-Dukan, are returning to al-Sufyan Islam, which was founded by my first father, Abraham, for our earthly and divine salvation. Not all will agree with what I'm saying. So me, I'm speaking for me. And so that's why you see the name of this channel, Al Sufyan Islam Marab Allah, setting the record back clean. I don't want your diluted half truths. I don't want your false texts. I don't want your false scriptures. I don't want your false God. So for all those who feel the same, that's what the subscribe button for. Subscribe to what you believe in. So before we get out of here, bring that on the screen so you can see it yourself. The fake history of the Arab slave trade is correctly called the Marab slave trade. So if you are dark skinned, you have been attacked by dark skins and you have been attacked by pale skins. These two has come together to form a faction to destroy Marab Al Sufyan Islam. And never on my watch. The truth is now known. As-salam, as-salam, as-salam.